بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sumayya Hassan. Welcome to Aspire. In today's show, we want to talk about some tips to keep our teams productive when they're working from home. In the current environment where a lot of teams are working remotely, it could be a mixed bag. There are some people who thrive in working remotely. They love working from home. They absolutely blossom in that type of environment. And there are some people whose productivity completely goes down. They suffer from cabin fever. They can hardly get much done. If you look at the studies, you'll get both. On the one hand, you'll get reports that show how productivity really goes up when people are working remotely or working from home. You will also get studies that show there are too many distractions in the house, and the inability maybe to separate work from home makes certain people less productive. So rather than relying on the personality or the circumstances of your individual employees to succeed in working remotely or not, there are certain things that you can do, that you can put in place to help your employees deliver when they're working remotely. And you as the employee, there are certain things that you can do to help yourself be much more productive when you're working remotely. So the first thing, as an employer, equip your team with the technology and productivity tools. Does your team have the tools to work remotely? The most basic of it is connectivity. What arrangements have you made for your teams to have connectivity so that they can do what they need to do remotely? They may need to log into the system, your office system from home. They may need to work on their emails. They may need to be sending, projects and proposals, or keep updating you, engaging with the clients. Have you given them airtime? Do they have, bundles? Are they on Wi-Fi? Whatever arrangements, do they have an appropriate machine, whether it is a laptop or a computer? What are the tools that you would have provided had they been in the office that you should provide even when they're at home to make them excel and comfortably able to work from home? The other tools you also need to look at apps, for instance, that could help with project management tracking, that could help with group projects, that can help with video conferencing. I think currently the video conferencing is the easier one. Everybody is on one video conference application or another, but the project management and tracking, that may be much more challenging for people. So rather than hoping that your teams will self-regulate and just sending the type of reports that they should, there are some very easy to use, user-friendly, very cheap, and some are even, freely available tools that you can use to help your teams work remotely. The second thing you should do is to establish a routine of a daily check-in. You can decide to have first thing in the morning. You can decide midway through the day. You can decide yours is at the end of the day, but have a daily check-in routine. This is really important when your teams are working remotely. It helps you to set your priorities. It helps you to maintain the connections so that, people are not feeling completely remote and separated from the reality of the business. So this creates a certain sense of normalcy, and you can decide, do you want a one-on-one check-in? Do you want it in smaller groups? Do you want it every once in a while in larger groups? So perhaps you had a weekly meeting schedule when you were in the office. There's no reason why you can't continue with your weekly meeting. The only thing is that now you'll hold it virtually. But it is important to have a sense of normalcy so that the teams can also have normalcy in terms of production and productivity, and not feel that they're really unable to perform just because they are working remotely. The other thing you can do is also to encourage dedicated workspaces, particularly for people who are working 100% from home. Sometimes separation between work and home can be very challenging. And yes, I do acknowledge not everybody has the space at home to have a private home office. But there are certain things you can do to have a temporary or even a makeshift home office in a space you never thought about. Perhaps you have a guest bedroom, which you can decide you will be using while there is no visitor there as your home office. You could decide that you have a very big, perhaps walk-in closet that you could use for that purpose. There could be a store that has enough space for you to move out all those extra things and put your, your desk and your chair and your home working gadgets to help you create, a better environment for working. It could as well be a balcony that is in a place that is not noisy, and you can set yourself up there and have that as your home office. Now, particularly in the current environment when the children are also home from school and everybody is at home, it can be much more challenging having that quiet space for you to focus and concentrate. It can even be in your bedroom. But if you are able to deliberately set aside a certain space, and by the way, you should do this for the children as well if you can. If you can deliberately set aside even a little corner in the bedroom, their bedroom for instance, or in the dining room where they sit and do their schoolwork, it gives a much better appreciation, much more seriousness to the task at hand than them reading from their bed, for instance, where, people are falling asleep and waking up. So setting aside a dedicated space can really help towards productivity. The other thing, if you're a leader and you have a team that is working remotely, is really being able to provide some psychosocial support. There is a group of employees that really suffer negative emotions that can have adverse impact on their mental health due to the loneliness of perhaps where they are. Some could be in a remote area where they don't have the type of social interactions that they may have ordinarily. So you need to set extra support mechanisms to help give them emotional support during this time. And among the things you should do, number one is that you as a leader need to be very calm and upbeat. You should be the one setting a positive tone. But if you are the one who is always down and gloomy and walking around like the sky is coming down on your shoulders, you translate and transmit that to your employees. It is a negative environment to have to work under. So be very calm, be very upbeat, be positive, and have that level-headed environment that you're then positively transmitting to your employees. As a leader, also be perhaps more available than usual. Sometimes the teams need to consult a little bit more often than they would while they're settling down into the remote working, because the resources they ordinarily have in the office are not available to them. So be available so that they know they can easily reach you if they need to engage you and to consult you. What are the different mechanisms through which you are available? And once you've given those platforms, make sure you are available. If you say I'm available on this email, on this mobile, but then you're not, and somebody has something that they really needed to get in touch with you, then that can create quite a bit of negativity and reduced productivity. At the same time, to help both of you manage, because one of the challenges of working from home is if you're not careful, there is no break. You could be working almost continuously. So you may want to set virtual working hours. That the virtual working hour is from this time to that time. And people know these are the times they're expected to be at work. And during that time, people really should be available. So if you're looking for somebody outside those hours and you can't find them, then it shouldn't be a surprise, because that is really outside the official working hours, which is not to say if there's something urgent that needs to be done or important that people can't go extra. They do even when they're in the office. But it is important to demarcate certain virtual working hours to ensure that people are not burning themselves out by constantly working just because they are not going from point A to point B and they are in the same environment throughout. It is also important for for the mental health of employees, that the leader should encourage self-care among the employees. And part of this is encourage your employees to exercise. Are they working out? One of the challenges of being at home, people tend to add weight. Why? Because they're eating and just being sedentary. You know, you're just eating and sitting, eating and sleeping. Yes, you're not moving around as much. So even in an environment where movement is restricted because of the pandemic, there still are things that one can do within the house. Within a fairly small amount of space, you still can exercise, and you should encourage your employees to exercise even when they're at home. Encourage them to get quality sleep. It really is very important for their overall well-being. Encourage them, this may sound strange, but on a light note, of course, the fact that you're at home throughout doesn't mean you shouldn't shower. Even the people in your home environment want to live with clean people, isn't it? So if you have video meetings with your staff, you can tell this person is starting to become unkempt. Just because you're working from home doesn't mean your hair should be uncombed and, you know, that you're looking rough. So the idea is that they should be continuing with their lives as normally as possible, though in a certain confined environment. If you're working from home, one of the things you want to do is to dress for success. Now, what does this mean? It means that psychologically, there is an impact on your productivity from how you dress. If you decide to spend your whole day in pajamas, it may not lead to a high level of productivity. There may be a small group of people who are very productive in pajamas, but for the rest, if that is what you spend your whole night in and you continue the whole day in, then psychologically you're still in that laid back, relaxed, sleepy mode, and that is not good for productivity. So be much more serious, get into a routine. You've woken up, you've prayed, you've taken your shower, dress. I'm not suggesting wear a suit. You can. Nothing is stopping you from having a suit and a tie, in your house. Please, if that's what makes you productive, go right ahead. But the point is that get out of your pajamas and dress in something that makes you take the task at hand much more seriously, so that you feel better about yourself and better about the work that you're doing. Remember the other thing as well, right now we spend a lot of time on video meetings and conference calls. If you need a rather impromptu conference call, yes, you don't have to keep looking for excuses or, no, can we reschedule this to another time? Why? Because you need to go and shower and comb your hair and iron and what have you. You're much more ready. You're already work ready when you have dressed appropriately. So I encourage you to dress for success even when you're working from home. At the same time, don't forget about non-work interactions and team building. Even when the team is dispersed and working remotely, it is important to keep building the team. So part of what you want to do as a leader is create time and space for your employees to interact with each other. This could be maybe a few minutes before a formal meeting or a few minutes after the meeting. Allow some time, winding down time where people can just connect and just find out how they're doing, or set up a deliberate virtual team building exercise, or just a virtual team town hall exercise where people just come in and talk, whether you're encouraging just, open talk for people to connect and share things, or you have maybe a wellness talk, somebody coming to talk about, better nutrition while you're at home, or exercise, or mental health, or wealth management during pay cuts. It could be any type of thing, but do have virtual engagements with your team. It is also very important as a leader that you understand and are able to segment your team. You don't want to send the same type of message to everybody, even though it's not relevant. You don't need to bombard your team with emails. A lot of emails end up being unread anyway because it may not necessarily be useful. So helping productivity is also very much influenced by you being very targeted. send the email to the employees that need to get it. Don't bombard everybody with an email that is not relevant to them, because then you're making them spend valuable time sifting through, trying to figure out which is the one that really is important to me. And worse, you may get some who just don't bother to read them at all because they're just overwhelmed by the sheer amount of email. Test different types of content. Sometimes you want to write an email, sometimes you want to send a short video, you know, a voice note. It could be many different ways of communicating, and you should test with the different segments of your employees. Some may just work better than the other. Remember also with the different generations at your workplace, it's not the same way of communicating. So one size fit all will not work. You really need to spend a bit of time understanding your employees and ensuring that the format you're using and the content is relevant. And finally, also involve the employees, get their say. You can carry out mini surveys so that you understand their input. What are their experiences? What are their challenges? Which format, which platform do they prefer? Any opportunities for improvement that they see, you know, any other areas they want to highlight to you. It really is very important. And the last thing that I want to highlight, if you have some teams that are working in the office and some that are working remotely, be very careful that your message is aligned. Otherwise, the people who are working remotely will feel like they're left out, like the people working in the office have all the advantage and all the perks. So just make sure your information is aligned. You don't want customers getting to hear about things before your staff has heard about them. So your internal communication is also very key to helping productivity of your employees. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's show. I encourage you to keep in touch. Let us know your feedback, your comments, your questions through any of the social media handles streaming at the bottom of your screen. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.